Yo, what's going on, guys? Reversal here, and today I'm going to be doing another post-Banlist Dinosaur deck profile, and this time we're going to be focused on a blind second version. If you're interested in the deck going first, I posted a Nemesis build the other day, so check that out if you haven't already. I'll be doing another going first build focused on the Dino stuff pretty soon, so be on the lookout for that. If you haven't subbed to the channel already, definitely do that now. Drop a like, comment, all that good stuff. Before I get into the deck list and the theory behind some of it, if you're interested in this Dinosaur playmat or these sleeves, check out finalsaga.de. Use my code reversal10 for 10% off your order. It helps me directly, and they got a bunch of cool stuff over there. In addition to the Dino stuff, they have binders, they have an anime Orica set, deck boxes, and another mat, so definitely check them out. I'll leave a link in the description. So yeah, it's going to be a blind second list. I think going second is in a decent spot compared to before. With the Baron and Savage ban, there's less Omni negate, so board breakers should be better in theory. The Link Variable ban means your Lost World's good going second to the Fire decks, which is huge. Helps you consistency-wise, helps you play through their other disruptions that target, helps you through hand traps, so I think it's a decent trade-off, even though we did lose Link Karibo and it hurts some. I think the fact that Lost World's good going second makes up for it for this format. But yeah, the decks you really have to worry about when you're blinding second are the decks that like FTK you, which would be like Branded doing the Puppet Lock since that didn't get hit. So have a decent plan for it game one, then a better plan post side, and then when you get to choose first or second against decks like that don't play hand traps, you can always opt to go first and then just build a board that they can't break as opposed to trying to break their board. And then Runic Stun, since some people hate fun, and then Tenpai Dragons is another blind second deck, so you have to be aware of that there's another deck that wants to go second. And that deck's going to be relatively popular since it's budget, assuming you have a Trident Dragion in your bulk or successfully got one from a friend. So definitely have to be worried about those type of decks, but I think the Fire matchup is what you're going to see more than anything. I think Dinos has a decent Fire matchup in my opinion. You mainly just have to worry about if they have like 3 hand traps backing up their board. That's always kind of been the issue. I think the boards that they make for the most part, between Lost World now and then Misk, you kind of can deal with a lot of them naturally. The main thing you always concerned about was the IP and the Appaloosa. So you just kind of tailor your non-engine to deal with that and then go from there. But yeah, I think the deck should be okay going second. It's always been my favorite version of Dinos, if it's viable in a format, since Conductor's a lot better going second, Lost World's a lot better going second. Just seeing that 6 card helps you a lot with consistency, and just breaking boards with Dino is just one of the most fun things to do, so I think it's definitely something I'm going to be trying, and I think it'll go okay. So we'll see how good it ends up being, but only time will tell. So yeah, this deck is 42 cards this time around. It's just what it ended up being for the math to be where I wanted it to be, to draw like a certain amount of board breakers and having enough engine. So start off with 3 Ovi as usual, 2 Archosaurs, 3 babies, 1 petite. So in blind second, I don't think you need more than 1 petite. You just want the 4 babies, otherwise it's too cloggy. Going first, whenever I play 2 of these, I side one out anyway going second, so makes sense to play 1. We got the 1 Misk, unfortunately. The 1 Rex. This could also be Kaito. It doesn't really matter which one you choose to play. It's all preference. I prefer the higher attack stat personally, as opposed to the Kaito that can attack directly. I think the attack stat comes up a little bit more, but it doesn't really matter which one you choose to play. They both can come up in different situations where one's better than the other. We got 2 Conductor, as usual, 1 Pank. Since it is a blind second deck, you can play a second one, but this card is very good with Lost World, but I don't think as a board breaker it's that great, since you don't really want to be wasting your battle phase. You want to kill them if possible, so I think just playing 1's fine since it's searchable. Same thing with the Kaiju. I think it's pretty good in terms of removal, especially with a deck like Pearly being back in the meta, but this card, just being able to tribute something without them being able to respond is nice, since it is also searchable. And then both of these cards giving your opponent a Lost World token before you commit your normal summon is always really good. And last monster is Xeno Meteorus. I'm not playing the vanilla, I'm just playing this and a 1 of Ground Xeno as a thrust target, since I don't think these cards are great going second. But I did want to include them, as well as the 1 Ground Xeno in the main, and then the 1 Ground Xeno plus the vanilla in the side for when you think you're going to go first or you want to go first. Because having the vanilla and the extra ground Xenos does help you with consistency and playing through stuff like Droll and other weak hands. You can get to the Lars a lot more reliably. So that's important, I think, and the extra consistency, I think, is needed. Since the like base Dino version without any extra consistency piece can definitely break going first, so you don't want that to happen as much as possible when you do choose to go first or be made to go first. So that's it for the monsters. For the engine consistency spells, we have 3 prosperity as usual. The half damage is whatever. You either can kill them still with Pentastag Dugares, or you just clear their board and set up enough to stop their crackback. It's still like the best pot you can play. You can search for your board breakers as well, which is huge. 3 Fossil Dig as usual. 3 Lost World. I mentioned before, this card is just really nice for consistency and playing through disruptions and hand traps. And the fact that the Link Rebo can't get rid of it now, I think we just play this card at 3. And it does a lot for you. 2 Pill as usual, and the 1 ground Xeno. This is just a good thrust target to have when you want to thrust for engine. Sometimes thrusting for Fossil Dig is fine, but there's other times where you do want the ground Xeno specifically for, like, if you have a baby and you already went through your misc. Having this as a thrust target is nice, and then, like I said, you side the other one. It's just a slight boost in consistency, which this deck needs when you do go first. So for the additional non-engine, we have 3 Droplet, 3 Book of Eclipse, 2 Thrusts, 1 Talents, 1 Change of Heart, 1 Mind Control, 2 Cosmics, and then the 1 Call By. So I'll start off with the steel cards. I think these cards are really good into Appaloosa, which there's a lot of with the fire decks. I think moving forward with Tenpai becoming a thing, I might opt to change the Mind Control for something else that's a little more versatile going first, maybe a 3rd Cosmic. But I think Cosmic's a really nice card in combination with all these other cards. I don't think as a standalone card it's that great blind second, but I think what I was going for with all these cards, I just wanted them to pair well with each other into a lot of different boards, and I think they definitely do a good job of doing that. And the math behind the list is you're going to see, between all these cards right here, you're going to see these a little bit over 70% of the time to see 2 of them. And Prosperity makes that a little better as well, which I didn't factor in. And then Lost World is like a pseudo going second card kind of too, so that's including Pank and Doggerin in that math as well, by the way. But yeah, I think a lot of these they just pair well. These steel cards, taking Appaloosa can be game winning on its own. Droplet can be game winning on its own. Eclipse has potential to be game winning on its own. But it's mainly just a combination of these, which is nice. Like if you draw Droplet or Eclipse plus a Cosmic against Puppet Lock, you can out it. Sometimes you can out it like with just Droplet if your opponent's bad, but it's not something you can really count on. And then Call By is good for Puppet Lock as well, as just random other stuff and then hand traps. So I think it's still good to play going second. And then the Eclipse is good for cutting off, like if your opponent has the IP, you could book all their stuff before main phase, and then they don't have any bodies to IP with, so that's pretty good. A new combo that the Pure is doing that's like the most popular one, if they open the Witch and an Extender and don't get hand trapped, is the Omega Dispatter Hand Loop 2. And if they go for that, assuming they don't just like hit exactly what you needed to like play, if you have just Eclipse after that, that breaks their whole board. Since it's just IP, Flamberge, and Dispatter, so you're flipping the Dispatter and the Flamberge, and they won't have anything to IP with. So that breaks their whole board. You just have to deal with potential hand traps after that. But I think this card's pretty good in theory, and then having the quick plays, I think, versus Tenpai will be very nice if they make you go first, especially. So yeah, I think all this non-engine should be pretty good into the format. We'll see. I'll revisit it in a few weeks, depending on how the blind second testing goes and how the format kind of shapes up, since we are getting a new set. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think the theory behind all of these non-engine in combination with each other checks out. So for the extra deck, there's going to be, I think, 17 cards here. They're not all mandatory. But Anima, you need that. SP, this card's crazy, obviously. If you don't have it, you can get away without it, but it is really nice to have. The Donner. So this is like an optional card depending on if you play Fenrir in the side, which I'm going to show. I'm playing it personally right now because I think just having a card that's good going first and second when you don't know if you're going first or second is nice, and it is a consistency card since you can combo off through Lost World Token with this, so it's just something that's good to have. Reaperdocus, this is just for having a Link 2 that works under the Meteorus lock when you do side the vanilla in. So it's just to get the non-Dino engrave and then under the lock. That's all that's there for. If you decide to side deck the Nemesis stuff, which you can definitely do, I just don't like playing it with the Xeno stuff, especially when you're like having to side all those cards. The Reaperdocus would come up with like a Shatos or Protos, but other than that, it's really just a Link 2 that works under the Meteorus lock just to get the Anima engrave. That's it. Pentastag, help with OTKs. We got the Nightmares and Access Code. This can help you OTK as well while popping a bunch of stuff on their board. It's definitely something that you don't need to have in the extra deck, but it's nice to have just as an option if you do need it. So then XCs, we got Dolka, Lagia, Lars, Dweller as usual. We got the Dugares, help you with the OTKs. Baguska, I feel like this card's important to have just for some of the times when you can just make SP plus a rank 4 plus Conductor. This card is often better than making an Evolzor since it's just kind of more annoying to get rid of. And your SP still works while this is sitting there in defense as well. So they have to out this. If they don't out it, they can't do anything. And if they do out it, you still have SP Conductor. So I think it's an important card to have. And then in addition to this, like if you sit on it in defense and they can't out it, you can always put it into attack and then make a Zeus next turn. And then since you're playing steel cards, this can come up versus Xyz deck. So I think it's an okay card to have. This is definitely not mandatory. It doesn't come up a ton. And then Typhon. This is another one that doesn't come up all the time, but sometimes it can be very nice to have. And then the last card is Chenging. So this is your Synchro 10 that you can make sometimes with the Meteorus. I think it's good to have as an option. I don't know how much it's going to come up, but in theory it's pretty good because it's high attack, obviously. It's removal. You could banish something from their grave as well if there's something in there you need to get rid of. So I think all these have their uses. You could definitely cut down on any number of them depending on what you have or whatever. But just wanted to give a couple extra options in case you don't have some of these cards. So for the side deck, as usual, I'm going to show a little more than 15 just for options' sake. So as I mentioned, the 1 ground Xeno and the 1 vanilla just to help you when you go first. Then the 3 Fenrir, which this can help you when you go first as well. I wanted to have 5 cards to side in when I'm going first every time because you are playing cards like Change of Heart, Mind Control, Thrust that you really just don't need in your deck when you go first. So these are just easy side-ins, and when you're going blind and you don't know if your opponent's going to make you go first or not, since even if you're playing against a blind second deck or not playing against the blind second deck, some people will make you go first because they think they have a better chance of just breaking your board. It happened to me a lot in the past when I played blind second, which was a lot more annoying before Lars was a card, because cards like Talents and Steel cards were a lot better into UCT before we had the double Omni Negate. So I think Fenrir is just a great card that you can side into if you're unsure if your opponent's going to make you go first or second. And then when you want to go first, it's just a nice consistency card as well as being a good disruption. Then we got 3 Bystials. You could opt to play more if you have space, but I think 3 is okay. It's just more ways to stop Puppet Lock. It's good against Voiceless and other decks that have Light and Darks in the grave. And then Druid Swarms is good removal. 3 Nib. So I think this card, with the Baron and Savage ban, this card potentially gets a lot better. I think a lot of decks can still play pretty reasonably well into it. But I just want to play one hand trap that's most likely to stop my opponent like FTKing me, and Nib is that hand trap. And in addition, I think a card that still experimenting with, but I think pairs well with board breaker strategy. And then when you want to search nib potentially is Phantasme. So I think this card's really nice in theory, especially against just any deck that makes a link. Dino is often in its most unbeatable form when you kind of just have those custom hands going second that play through everything. And this card can help you get those hands more often. So I think it's definitely a nice card to experiment with. I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but I'm definitely trying it for now. And then we got the one Duster, which you need to play this as another thrust target. And then just when you're facing like anything with a bunch of back row. Could potentially even main this at some point, depending on how the non-engine kind of shapes out. Could move this Cosmics to the side potentially, or the Mind Control, whatever. But we'll see how the format goes, and then maybe this moves to the main, maybe it doesn't, but you want to have it somewhere. It's another good thrust target. And then another card you could play is Ghost Ogre. It's another one, could potentially be in the main deck at some point, since it does hit Appaloosa and IP on your turn. And then this is good against Tenpai Field Spell, and that's going to be a matchup you have to be aware of. But I think Ogre's like decent. I don't really want to play hand traps in the main, but this is one I would consider, since it's like one you could draw as a 6 card, and it's like kind of a board breaker against like those IPs and Appaloosas. And if I was to play a going first card in the side, it would probably be D-Barriers, just because like Tenpai is going to make you go first, and then Branded, you want to go first against them, and this card just says no to both those decks, in addition to a whole bunch of other decks in the format, if you do ever find yourself wanting to go first. But yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to play a going first like Floodgate like this, but this is the one I would play most likely in this kind of list. And then last, it would be a third Cosmic. This would be nice to have on the side, or even potentially in the main deck, if you do have space for it. So I just wanted to mention it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the blind second list. I think in theory this list should perform pretty well, but we'll see how that goes. But if you decide to give it a try, let me know how it goes for you. But yeah, with that being said, be on the lookout for the other going first list if you're interested in the Xeno stuff going first. And thank you for watching. Have a good day. Peace.